So I'm in the mood to talk about something I really like. So today that is going to be the Australian comedy show Please Like Me, written by and starring the comedian Josh Thomas as a gay boy whose mom is bipolar and often tries to kill herself. That's a warning. If that is like a topic that really is something you can't hear about, then I won't try to convert you to watch the show because you shouldn't watch it, and you also shouldn't watch this video. But anyway, I feel like this isn't such a bad time for me to try to convert people to the Please Like Me religion, although I have been thinking about making this video for quite a while. In the last year, Hannah Gadsby, who was one of the actors in the show, has become a lot more famous because of her stand-up Netflix special on the net. So I thought, maybe this is an especially good time to try to convert people. So Please Like Me was like 4 seasons long. It aired from 2013 to 2016, and as an American, I found it difficult, literally like logistically difficult to find to watch. But I think you can watch it on Hulu, and like you might be thinking, oh, I'll just torrent it. Well, it's hard, but like good luck. So yeah, it is a really good show based on Josh Thomas's life. It's kind of one of those shows where they take a stand-up comedian and they make them pretend that they're living their life, but that they just happen to be doing like obvious stand-up routines in the middle of everything. Yet this really works. It makes it seem like Josh is just kind of an obnoxious dude who'll be dealing with some really serious situation and then just like go into a routine because he either like really wants to just like rip someone apart emotionally and just eviscerate them, or he just like wants to like do observational comedy about some random thing, and he like sells it. So the show's kind of about this guy, his family and friends, so his mom who's mentally ill and everything that goes to do with that, and basically the fact that like even though Josh has just become an adult, it's like he suddenly has to sort of become a parent to his mom when she like has a breakdown and is dealing with her mental illness. And then like his dad and his dad's girlfriend. One thing I really like about the show is the fact that his divorced parents are still friends and see each other a lot, and like even though there's issues between them, like they're not like enemies or at each other's throats. I feel like you just don't see that a lot. There's like so many things in the show that are common in real life, but that like you don't usually see portrayed in fiction. Like, I won't go into detail because I don't think I should spoil anything from beyond the first season, but there's like one thing with an abortion where it's just like portrayed in a way that is like pretty normal, but that you just don't see on TV, and it's really cool. So anyway, another fun thing about the show is that Josh Thomas couldn't find any actors who looked like his best friend because, as he said, his friend was neither attractive nor unattractive, and like they wouldn't bring him like any actors to audition who looked like that. So he just had to cast his own best friend who is not an actor. But that makes him quite fun to watch, given that he's not an actor and just is kind of a regular looking person. I wrote myself some notes because I've been having trouble doing this video. I've been trying to do it for a while, but I think anytime that I try to talk out of my head with no preparation, there's always going to be issues. So, in addition to talking about Please Like Me, I also kind of want to talk about Nanette, Hannah Gadsby's special. I definitely think it's good and worth watching. For me, it didn't totally live up to the hype, maybe just because the hype was too much. Like, it's definitely good, but I also felt kind of like I wasn't like into what she was saying about comedy. Like, I feel like sort of the issue she was trying to like address. So she's basically saying she doesn't feel good about being a stand-up comedian anymore because she thinks comedy is inherently harmful to her. And in order to like make that point, she has to like define comedy in a really narrow way. Like, sort of the point she's trying to make are things like, if you're a marginalized person and you're trying to be like accepted by the people who have more power than you, then it's like you have to like be self-deprecating and you have to kind of like demean yourself and you have to kind of act like any like awful moments of oppression that you may have faced like weren't really that bad, because you don't want to make people super uncomfortable, and like you want to be like fun and all this stuff that is like definitely true. So she sort of brings that into like being a stand-up comedian and kind of talks about the ways like, it's sort of like an anti-comedy show where she starts to, like, deconstruct the ways that she's, like, taken real events from her life, which, like, usually were, like, a lot worse than the way they seem in the show, or may have, like, actually been better. But either way, she has to, like, simplify them and kind of, like, take away them and, like, even kind of, like, lie about what really happened in order to, like, make them work in a stand-up comedy format. So that's really interesting, and I get what she's getting at, but at the same time, like, comedy doesn't have to be as narrow as she's saying it is. Like, comedy can make the audience uncomfortable. Comedy can mean, like, telling a joke about something and then getting serious about it. Like, there aren't really any rules of comedy, and, like, I mean, honestly, I feel like she kind of shows it in a meta way by doing a comedy special where she discusses this stuff. Anyway, what this has to do with Please Like Me is that I feel like it's a really great example of, like, comedy that's kind of all-encompassing, that sort of portrays life as it is and talks about real life in a way that, like, a serious TV show couldn't do if they were trying to be tasteful or be, like, somber about, like, bad things, or just, like, portray all the characters having the, like, appropriate serious reactions to serious stuff. Like, then it just wouldn't be the way things really are. One thing that I wanted to talk about that I really love, this is a dark scene in the show, is the scene where Josh comes home and he's just dealing with regular, like, young person relationship issues, and, like, the audience is caught up in those things too. And he gets home and he finds that his mom has just tried to kill herself, and he's, like, totally unprepared and doesn't know how to deal with it. His mom tells him, "Don't worry, I threw up the pills so you don't have to call an ambulance, I'm gonna be okay." And Josh doesn't know what to do because he doesn't know whether he should believe his mom or not. It's kind of like he's exhausted and he wants to, like, just believe her and help her get to bed and just forget this happened, but he's like, you know, it's like so much of the show is kind of about him having to become the parent and, like, deal with stuff that he's way too immature to deal with his mom, and he just, like, doesn't feel in a position to make this judgment about whether his mom is telling the truth and whether he should call an ambulance or not. So in kind of the typical style of the show where he'll just start going on about something, he just starts whining, like, "Mom, how could you put me in this situation? Like, if you die, I'll be responsible, and I'll be so messed up, and I won't even have my mom to help me." And he just, like, whines and whines, and it's super annoying, but super, like, how you would expect somebody to actually react. And, like, it's just such a great scene, because I feel like, you know, for example, I'm almost 30. I pretty much feel like an adult, which I didn't necessarily think was going to happen. But at the same time, even when you feel like an adult, you never really become, like, your idea of what an adult was going to be. I know this is kind of like a cliched observation, but, like, it is true that you're always just kind of a kid and, like, things are happening and you're like, what? Like, to me, I'm just a kid. I obviously can't deal with this. And I feel like the show just captures that super well. Another thing I really like about the comedy and sort of, like, tragedy interplay, I won't describe any incidents that happen, like, after the first season, because I don't want to, like, super spoil people or anything, but I think the fact that, like, stuff like suicide and self-harm is just kind of, like, portrayed in the middle of, like, a normal day with, like, funny and weird things happening at the same time just makes it seem so much more real, and it doesn't really like other mental illness or mentally ill people, because it's just kind of, like, happening, which is the way that it really is. So I really love that. I also think the theme song of the show is super fun. There's a great dog in the show, and I don't think it would surprise you to learn that the dog is played by Josh Thomas's real dog, and he's not a bad actor. I mean, it's a dog. So the theme song of the show is this really upbeat song, and instead of having, like, a normal credit sequence, the song is always just, like, playing while Josh or somebody else is doing something, like playing with his dog, or just, like, hanging out, or most of the time cooking. Even though I can't cook myself, I feel like I can kind of, like, put together cooking as a metaphor. It's, like, something that's sort of boring and that you have to do in order to survive. It can also be fun and creative, but at the same time, it's probably this kind of, like, numbing thing that you just have to do every day. So the theme song is always this montage of the character doing some kind of boring thing, but, like, they're usually kind of dancing and, like, singing along to the theme song. making you imagine that like they are just probably just dancing along and like singing to nothing by themselves, but that's something people do. And it's just like sort of cut to make it sort of look like them doing this everyday task is kind of like a cool, exciting music video. And I feel like that really shows how the show is. It's kind of like it takes everyday things and shows like the moments of extreme coolness in really boring stuff, and the moments of like fun in even really bad stuff. It's basically just a super great show. I can't remember if there was like a lot else I was gonna say about it, but I think like unfortunately like the only really like really true thing I can say about it is just that it's really like life in a way that most works of fiction I feel like don't really capture how things really are. I also will share the quote that got me into the show. I saw it on Tumblr and it didn't have it was like screen caps from the show and it didn't say what it was from, so I had to go out of my way to try and find it. I feel that this is a good example of how great the show is. I'm trying to figure out how I should tell people that I'm gay. Maybe I should yell it at them outside of a passing car. That's how other people tell me that I'm gay. I could flip the system. Overall, it's just like super great to watch. I think I've kind of stuck on the more serious aspects of the show. But I think like, you know, even if you weren't watching it for those things, it's just like so good to watch. I could just watch it over and over. I wish I could be more articulate about it, but you know how it can be like a lot easier to kind of like, you know, eviscerate and like cut up something that you don't like, whereas when you really like something, it can be hard to explain what's so wonderful about it, but it's like really just like a perfect TV show. I'm trying to even remember if there's anything I should like warn people about, because I do feel like it's polite to do that. I guess there's like some incidents of characters being racist. I think it's generally not portrayed as like okay in the show. There's also a scene where one of the characters say they would like never date a disabled person, and you do you, whatever. Anyway, I would really recommend the show because I think it's super great.